Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing like a little talking vlog type of thing about something that like a lot of people do talk about this here on YouTube, and there's a lot of shows about this on TV. Um, so I'm just gonna tell you about a couple paranormal experiences that I've had growing up. So the first one started when I lived in Pennsylvania. There was a house that my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather lived in when my grandfather and his brothers and sisters were growing up. It was red, like a brick house almost. And there's an upstairs and a downstairs. Um, the downstairs was all boarded up. Sorry, my nose itches really bad. I have allergies. Okay. Sorry about that. And me and my two sisters or cousins that came over, we would always go over there and knock on the door. And, like, the other people would stand on the, like, here's the house, and here's the road, back here where my hand is waving. They would stand back here by the road, so that way it wouldn't interfere with the knock. And there's a shed over here, like here's the house and here's the shed, like diagonal, and on this side was a creek on this side too. So we'd go from oldest to youngest because we didn't really think that the younger kids should do this, but they wanted to participate anyway. So I would go first because I was the oldest at the time. So I would knock, and I'd wait 5 seconds, and I'd knock again, and then I'd put my ear to it, like maybe 2 seconds later, and I'd have my ear to it, and I've had an earplug on this side, and then I'd have my hand over it, and I put my ear up to the door, and I literally heard knocking from the other side of the door, like the same type of knock I did. It sounded like, I'm like, okay. So I went over to the line, and the next person, and nobody heard anything except for me. I'm like, well, she was my great grandmother. Like, you guys are from my mom's side of the family, so maybe she's not trying to communicate with you guys. I'm like, yeah, maybe. And like, I would have friends do it, and none of my friends or anything would hear it. So fast forward to a couple years later, I was 13. I had two friends over, and here's my house, and here's the house we were going to. Like, you can't see my hand. Okay. My house, the house we were going to, which was like almost a half a mile away. And we had to pass that house. We left during the day to go past that house. And we went to our friend's house, and we were there till like 8. We left at 4, so we were there 4 hours. And we were all sitting there talking, and okay. And we're like, oh my, it's getting late, we gotta get home. So we left, and our friend walked us back to my house because they're staying at my house. And we walked past the house, and we decided to flash a flashlight up there. And there's always been a rocking chair up in like the front window in the upstairs, and there's a doll up there. It's like an old glass rag doll, and she was standing up in it. And I asked them, I'm like, are you guys trying to play a prank on me? Do you guys see the doll standing up? They're like, no. And, like, my whole childhood, the doll was always sitting down and was facing like this. It was standing up and looking straight at us. We freaked out and we ran. And we didn't talk about that to anyone except for ourselves. Like, we were too afraid to talk about it. And, like, even now, I'm kind of getting the goosebumps from talking about it. And then, the next summer, it wasn't me because I was sick. Those two friends were coming to my house to bring me my homework. And they walked past, and they looked up in the window, and they saw the doll standing up. They ran right into the creek, like, straight into it. And they told me, I'm like, what? No way. And I got out of bed, got dressed, and I went out, and I went over there, and I looked, and the doll was sitting down. I was like, that's impossible. The doll was sitting up. The doll was looking right at us. Its head moved with us. And we were all freaked out. Like, we were sitting there with our little, like, friendship notebook, and we were all writing it down. Like, so, that's, like, the first two things. I only count the last two experiences as one, because it was kind of the same thing. So, the next one happened, I was staying at my Aunt Patty's house. And in the 1800s, the house belonged to a judge named Judge Clark. And he was murdered there by his maid or some person that chopped wood. I don't know what they're called. But he kept asking the maid when the firewood was coming so he could start a fire, or when she was going to start a fire. And she said, I'll be back and I'll bring you some wood. So she brought the wood in and she laid it down. She went back out to get more, but instead of getting more, she grabbed an axe. She chased him up the back staircase because there are two staircases. The back one, my aunt blocked off, like she enclosed it, and from the upstairs she put a wall up so no one can get in there and get hurt because boards were falling down and whatnot. So the maid chased him up there into his office, which was like a little room, almost like the size of a walk-in closet, I would say. And that was his office. And she cut his head off, or cut his neck, and there was blood everywhere. So, and like, my aunt, she's like, the people she bought it from, they kept saying that one room up there, it's all white now, but there's this big red stain there. We can't get it off. And they inherited it from the guy's family. And so my aunt's like, okay. They went up there and they put wallpaper up. The blood went through the wallpaper, so they painted it. Went through the paint. Then they put up wallpaper, like 5 coats of wallpaper, and like 2 coats of paint. I'm improvising. So they never put anything in that room because they didn't want it to, like, creep their kids out or anything. So my Uncle Pat, I know, my Aunt Pat and my Uncle Pat, they used it as like a little storage room like when they had their kids, it was full of diapers or baby wipes or anything stupid. And then when her kids got older and moved out, she used it as a linen closet, which actually made a lot of sense. So I was like 11, and my mom had to go to the hospital. So we went there to stay the night. I'm laying on the bed, getting ready to go to sleep. Like, the bed was in her living room, and it was me, my brother, and my two sisters. We're all laying there because it's like a big blow-up mattress in the middle of our living room, and we all shared the bed except for my brother, who slept on the couch. So me and my sisters were laying there, and we hear like a walking down the steps, and we got up and we ran to see who it was. And there is literally this black figure, is like the shape of a man, a black figure walking slowly down the steps. Like, their steps went like this, and then there's like a little stepway, and then it went down the rest. He stands at the stepway, looks at us, comes halfway down the rest of the steps, and disappears. We're like, did you see that? Like, yeah, did you see that? I'm like, yeah. Then I asked my sister, I'm like, did you see that? She's like, because she was scared. Like, we all had goosebumps. We were up till like 5 o'clock when my Uncle Pat got up. And he's like, what are you guys doing up? We're like, we saw Judge Clark. And he's like, what? We made that story up. I'm like, no, we saw Judge Clark. He had an axe. And he's like, what are you talking about? And my sister drew him a picture on a piece of paper of Judge Clark. And he looked at a picture that was left in the house of Judge Clark. And it was exactly the same. And he's like, what? This is ridiculous. How did you guys see Judge Clark? You guys had to have been looking at the picture or something. We're like, no, we saw Judge Clark. And then he's sitting there and he's talking to us, and we heard like a loud crash. So we all run into like the formal living room, and a tall like glass clock fell off the wall. It didn't crack or anything, but the hands were like popped off, and one kept going like this. And he's like, this dumb clock, I'm gonna have to get a new spring and stuff. So he like had a lock on it on the back, and he unlocked it, and he opened it, and he put the hands back on it, and he stopped it, and the little like whatever this little second one is, the tiny one that goes around, that one kept going. And then he stopped it, and he put a piece of paper in there, so when it, like, if it did it. And we went back and we sat down. He goes, that could have been a faulty nail or something. I'm like, is Judge Clark? We're talking about him, so he's gonna do something to us. And he's like, okay, so if it happens again, you guys tell us. I'm like, okay. So me and my sisters, we went to sleep, and I'm making a very long story, I know. We went back to sleep, and we woke up, and the clock was on the table right next to us, and the piece of paper was on top of the clock. We opened it up, and like all the hands, they were apart, and he, like, we ran out and told him, and he blamed us for it. We're like, we were asleep. How did it get on the table next to us? So yeah, that's number 3 or 4, whichever you guys want to take count of. And then I lived in Philadelphia for college. Well, no, before Philadelphia. Well, before college. We moved to Maryland when I was whatever, 2005. Yeah. I don't know how old I was, like 16, 17, some crap like that. And we, my parents' bedroom was like, it used to be the attic or something. And before that, this old lady had it, and like, way before that, like, this married couple had it or whatever. The one lady died in there. I don't know the whole story, like, the people that originally had it, she died in there. And the old lady, like, closed off the attic or something. And then before we bought it, the people that had it after the old lady, I guess, turned that into a bedroom and a bathroom. And then, like, my dad was up there sleeping, and he said he woke up to use the bathroom, and there was a lady in a white dress standing at the top of the stairs looking at him. Like, wait, I gotta take my glasses off to do this thing. And he said, like, she came towards him, and he, like, turned around and went to sleep because he was too scared to do anything. And a couple of days later, my mom had the same experience. So I told my mom, I'm like, next time you and Dad, go out for the night, I'm gonna stay up here and I'm gonna see what happens. So they actually decided to stay in my bedroom, and I stayed up there and I slept on their floor. So I was sleeping, and I got touched. Like, it's very creepy. I was sad. It woke me up, and I couldn't go back to sleep, so I watched TV. Oh, okay. Now, after I graduated high school, I went to Philadelphia to go to college, my first year, and our the one building where the first dorm rooms were was claimed to be haunted on the 16th floor and in the basement. The students weren't allowed in the basement because that was a service area, so people would do, like, stupid things with their cell phones on the 16th floor. Like, we do, like, powwows is what one kid called them. We'd all sit in the middle of the floor by the elevator, and we would have the security guard shut off all the lights on that floor. We just have some candles or flashlights, and we sat up there and we all had our cell phones on record, and we're like talking to each other. And one of my friends' phones, it started recording. Like, she didn't hit record or anything. None of us hit record. And her phone started, and then this other kid's, and it was going, like, one by one, and it skipped me. And then everyone else, like, their phones started recording. And I'm like, what is going on? And then my phone started recording. And when we were done, like, we sat up there for 2 hours. And when we were done, my friend said, hi. And then each one had, like, something that would come after hello or hi. And mine's like, no. That's it. That's all. I'm like, what? Like, that's the only thing that I caught online. But I didn't take it as anything because I thought my friends were playing a joke on me. So, and then when I came back home, I was going to another school. The library was really, really creepy. like the top floor. There was a basement. There's 4 floors, and like the stuff that I was looking for was on the 4th floor, which was at the top. You had to walk up staircases to get to it, or you could take the creepy elevator, which I didn't like. I didn't like elevators. So I walked up the stairs and I went up there. There's like one, maybe 2 people up there. One of the people left, and one of the people stayed up there because they were using a computer that was up there. And I'm looking through these books, and the other person's like, I'm done with the computer if you need to use it. And he left, like he went down the elevator. So I was looking at a stack of binders. It's like this big. Like, that's the binder that I was getting ready to look in. And it was something about like the school's history, or the building's history, something like that. And that room, it wasn't there. Like, it was an attic, like a storage something. And as soon as I started reading, a bunch of the lights came on. And I was standing right by the light switch, so I didn't do it. And there's no one up there. So I went over and flipped them on. And they didn't come on. Flipped them down. They didn't come on. So I opened the door to go downstairs. And I sat there, and then I looked up, and the lights were on. So I went back in there. And I was like on the phone talking, and somehow I heard music, but it wasn't from like the phone because the service was going out. It's a long story. That is making my mouth very tired. But I know there's something up there, and nobody believed me. Like, I could tell them, like, what was up there before this was a school? Like, I kept asking them a bunch of weird questions and nobody would answer me. And, like, the page right before the school's history was ripped out because you saw the little pieces of paper still there. So, and then recently, I was standing in the kitchen doing dishes, and there was a guy standing by the door. All I saw was like all black clothes. Sorry, I'm getting tired. And I looked, and he was gone. And I saw him out of my right eye, like my peripherals. And like maybe a week before that, I had my hands up fixing my hair, and I was like this, like, and I had my arm like this, and I saw him right here, but by the door. And I like put my hand down and I looked, and there's nothing there. And that was weird. And one time, after my boyfriend left, like his mom was grocery shopping, after my boyfriend left, I was sitting in the living room, and my dog was like barking for no reason. Like, she was like, rah, 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 rah. And there's no one out there. Like, there's nothing out here. And then I went out in the kitchen and the door was open, like this much. So, like, I didn't hear the door or open or nothing. And so I shut it and I, like, turned the lock. And we went back in the living room we're sitting, and she started barking again. Like, why are you barking? I went out there, and right by the door again, there was someone standing there. I couldn't tell what he looked like, I couldn't tell what he was wearing, but I knew it was, like, a guy, because to me, if I see something like that, women and children are gonna be, like, a white or, like, a lightish yellow color, and men are gonna be, like, a dark blue or a black. So, that was creepy. And most recently, um, I was in the kitchen, and my hair got pulled, and there was no one in there. And I turned around, and there's a guy wearing a red plaid shirt. He had, like, overalls over it. It was creepy. And that happened on my boyfriend's birthday. But nobody else saw him. So, yep. Joshua.